Hello, everyone, and welcome. I am so excited to have you all here and to join for this LinkedIn live session. So first, let me just say, as always, I am honored to have you all join me and to share space with me. And whether or not you're joining for the first time, you're joining live, or you're watching on the replay, I want to say welcome. I'm so happy to have you here. I also want to acknowledge the time and energy that you are putting into this and, choosing to show up to an event and to participate in something is the first step. So I'm so excited to have you all join. And let me just start by saying that this live session is based on a series of LinkedIn Lives that are based on my newsletter, which is relatively new, but that newsletter is based on my book series, which is titled Leadership Consciousness Essentials. And that book series, which I am so excited about, I spent the last year writing this book series because I believed that our leadership teams needed quick and practical guides to kind of help them understand some of these more abstract concepts. And the concepts themselves are out, they're published, you can get them. The first one is Leadership Reflexivity, which is what we're going to be closing out today. The second one is Conscious Intentionality, and this is what we are going to be moving into. The third one is Consciously Congruent, and the fourth one is Presence. And in Presence, we actually talk about one of the most foundational practices, which is the pause practice. And we'll talk just a little bit about that today because it is a vital part of the leadership reflexivity process. But without any further ado, I want to go ahead and jump in. And so today we're going to be closing out reflexivity, which is the major theme in the first book. And we're going to be kind of starting with reflexivity and ending with reflexivity as part of the newsletter series and the book series. And the reason that we do this is because this is the foundation of everything that we do. Reflexivity is kind of what puts everything together in a nice, neat container. And it's basically, if you haven't participated in the lives or in the newsletters or are not familiar with my work, it is basically just a conscious practice that is going to help you to kind of create coherence in your life and in your leadership. And it's going to be between like your inner experience, your relational dynamics that you have with the people around you, and also within the systems that you're a part of. And all of the work that I do is based on integrating consciousness into our leadership, which basically just means that we want to increase your awareness of how your internal experience, your social dynamics, and the systemic context that you are a part of are going to shape your leadership. And basically what we want you to be able to do is we want you to be able to integrate consciousness into your leadership so that coherence is the outcome. And I say coherence, but it's also congruence so that our actions and our behaviors are aligned to our values and our intent. And yeah, so I'll say that, and I'll also say one final thing on this. So reflexivity and being able to integrate some of these practices is what allows our own self-awareness to kind of ripple outward. It's what creates that relational trust. It's what builds our social rhythms, and it's also what creates the integrity at the systems level. And so let's go ahead and get started by doing a really, really brief practice to kind of help us slow down and come together. And so even for me, I'm a very fast talker, so I apologize if I talk too fast for anyone. But let's go ahead and come together. And what I want you to do is just find a nice, comfortable seat. If you feel safe and comfortable closing your eyes, you're welcome to do that. And I want you to just get comfortable. And so I'm realizing that I'm not comfortable. I'm going to adjust a little bit. And I want you to take a couple of deep breaths down into your belly. Breathe in and out. And I want you to just let go of and release any of the noise that you've had as part of your day. And as you inhale, I want you to feel yourself arrive fully in this conversation. And as you exhale, I want you to just kind of soften into your own presence. And what I want you to do is I want you to just set an intention for this session and the work that you're trying to do in your leadership. Now, taking time to kind of slow down, to be present, and to process what's happening within us and around us is what conscious leadership is about. It's about training ourselves to slow down just enough to shift our focus, to bring conscious choice to our awareness. And what this is going to do is it's going to ensure that we think, that we behave, and that we act in ways that are in alignment with our intentions. And when we talk about integrating consciousness into our leadership, this is fundamentally what we mean here is to bring awareness of how our own internal experiences, our social dynamics, and our systemic context kind of influence our leadership. And again, coherence is going to be the outcome when we're able to integrate all of that. And this is the purpose of today's session. We want to be able to kind of start with reflexivity, to move into intentionality, and to have this as our core foundation, because we cannot hope to do any of the other work unless we have this foundational practice as part of our daily routine. And so today we're going to be talking about the last part of the Leadership Reflexivity Cycle, which is the action part. So taking conscious action. And this is where we take our awareness and all of the insights that we got from our evaluative process, and we're going to consciously choose what the best path forward is. And as part of that, we are going to choose how we're going to take action towards that intent. And so I want to just jump right in. And if you're not familiar with the Leadership Reflexivity Cycle, I want to just recap that really quickly. And so if you're following along, you already know what this is, but the cycle is awareness. So noticing what's present for us in our minds, in our bodies, emotionally, socially, and then using that information to kind of take some action, and then getting evaluative feedback, whether it's from ourselves, from our own intuitive insights, or whether it's from other people. We're going to make meaning out of that. So the evaluative process is to make meaning, to identify any patterns that we have in our actions or our behaviors. And then the last part is to actually make adjustments. And so this is actually consciously realigning our behaviors and our actions to match the values that we have in the context that we are a part of. And so again, awareness, evaluation, and adjustment. Noticing, making meaning, and then making conscious adjustments. And now most people, if they're going through any kind of leadership development programming, will kind of focus in on the reflection aspect of this. They really want to dive in, they want to learn, they want to get information, and they want to get feedback. But very, very few people actually take the next step, which is to act on the insights that they've gotten. And so most people think, okay, I know that I do this in this circumstance, and that is their finish line. But the reality is that that's just the invitation. Once you know what your actions or your behaviors are, you have to actually take the next step of making adjustments so that you can use that insight to your advantage as a leader. And now, this is probably the key thing here, right? It's not about the insights. It is about what you decide to do with those insights that matters. And again, it's not about the insights. It is about what you do with those insights. And so, do you actually take that insight to make better decisions? Do you take that insight and use it to consciously choose a better path forward? Or do you take those insights and adjust your behaviors to better reach your goals? What do you actually do with the insights once you have them? Now, because you can't actually take conscious action on the insights or integrate that insight, you end up having a kind of an inner tension. And so lots of people, they go through this self-reflective process. They learn all of these things about themselves, and they either get lost in, I'm never going to be able to do this, or they have a tension because they are trying to make some adjustments and it's not working for them, or they feel like, I tried to take an adjustment, it didn't work, it ended up being worse, not realizing that this is an iterative process, and that if you don't continuously kind of work towards whatever it is that you're working towards, that tension is always going to be there. And not just for you, but also for your teams and the systems that you're a part of. And so we have to be able to recognize that this dissonance between what we know and what we actually do differently matters, right? And so if we know that we need to make changes and we don't actually make them, that is going to create tension in our lives. And then fast forward a little bit too, right? If we know that we need to do better and we're trying to do better, but we haven't done it yet, a big reminder for everyone is life is complex and everything is changing all of the time. We're changing. The people that we're interacting with are changing. The systems that we're a part of are changing. The laws are changing. The organizational policies are changing. And so we have to continuously adjust and adapt. And the whole point of the reflexivity cycle is to recognize that change is the constant, and we have to continuously adjust our actions and our behaviors to be in alignment. And we might have to do it several times, right? And so for me, I'm a really irritable person. I have a head injury, and irritability is a natural part of that. And trying to manage and navigate my irritability sometimes can be overwhelming. And especially as I have consistently tried to take action when I recognize I'm being irritable, I am, getting frustrated, I'm raising my voice, I'm not treating people kindly. As I'm recognizing this, and then I'm trying to take actions or make adjustments to my behaviors, and it's still, some things don't work. I have to be able to recognize I tried that, it didn't work, but that doesn't mean that I have to stop, right? Or I shouldn't keep moving forward. I have to find something that does work so that when I'm in that circumstance, I can adjust my behaviors, it works, and I move forward, right? And so if we don't do that, then we kind of create this dissonance that not only impacts us, but also impacts the people around us. And this is also one of the reasons why so many change programs and initiatives fail, because the leadership teams don't actually know how to or make the appropriate adjustments. And so one of the reasons I think this is so important is because we have to be able to continuously adjust. And that's the purpose of the reflexivity cycle. So let's talk about the adjustment, right? What does conscious adjustment actually look like? Now, I want to be really, really clear here that this is not announcing to the world that you're going to take on these massive changes and you're going to create this like completely structural overhaul of your organizations or the systems that you're a part of, right? Most of the time, the most influential things are the small and intentional pivots that people do in their lives. And so this is simple, like choosing to pause in a moment before kind of replying in a really tense or emotionally heated moment. It's shifting in a meeting to kind of match the rhythm of your team or to match their actual capacity. it is naming discomfort in your body and in your emotions or in your mind, instead of just letting it linger and get worse, right? Because when we have those emotions that are trapped in our body, then we start to exhibit outward behaviors that are not in alignment with our values. Or, I don't know, an organizational example, right? If we're annoyed with someone because we don't like their performance, and we've asked them, a couple of times to try and adjust, and we don't kind of take action to resolve that in a ways that are mutually beneficial for both, then that is going to fester, right? And it's going to lead to outcomes or relational dynamics that you don't want. And then maybe one more example of a small or intentional pivot is kind of asking for support, right? When you notice that you have a habit of doing something maybe that you shouldn't be doing, asking for support. And a really quick example, I used to always say you guys, and I worked in the time in sexual and domestic violence, which is predominantly women who are abused, not saying that men are not, but most of the time it's women that I ended up working with, and they would consistently remind me that my language was not inclusive. And so trying to tweak my language, I was not able to do it on my own because I didn't even recognize when I was saying it, right? And so I had to have a friend and a coworker every single time I said you guys, they had to correct me. You all, right? And so asking for support when you notice a habit that you can't actually manage on your own is a really small and powerful shift that you can do to one, demonstrate that you're trying, and two, invite other people into that process as part of that. Now, these kind of micro adjustments or the small things that you decide to shift come from your awareness. And so if you don't have that awareness, then you're never going to be able to take action on that. Now, one thing I want to say too is most of the time, the space between we know something and we understand something to be true and we actually make changes or we do the thing that we know that we're supposed to do is an emotional kind of barrier. And it's not just about knowledge. Most people know they should eat better and they don't. Most people know they should work out a couple times a week and they don't, right? And most of the time there is an emotional barrier that prevents them from taking the action or doing the things that they need to do. And so whether it's fear, discomfort, vulnerability, feeling too exposed, shame, whatever that is, you have to be grounded in your values as you're kind of stepping into this realm. And you also have to be gentle and consistent as you're navigating some of these changes, right? Especially as you are trying to make adjustments. You're a leader, right? You're trying to make adjustments to your leadership style. It's not working out so great in the beginning, right? You have to be gentle with yourself and you have to be consistent. You have to consistently say, I messed up. I didn't do it right again, but I want to, right? And so your values, your underlying values are going to be really important. And the intention that you bring, which we'll get to in a minute, is going to be really important. So one of my all-time favorite tools, very, very simple and easy to use, is pause, assess, and align. Right? And this is in alignment with the LRC, right? So you're pausing, you're taking that awareness in, you're assessing or you're evaluating the circumstances, and you are aligning your behaviors. And so you're in the moment. Let's say you're having a one-on-one with the person that you're struggling with their performance, right? And you notice that they're giving you the same excuses that they've given you in the past. And your initial reaction is kind of annoyance or anger or whatever that is. You feel it coming up, you pause, right? And you say, okay, if I want to interrupt my annoyance and my irritability or whatever that is that you're trying to interrupt, I have to give myself the space. So I have to pause, take a deep breath, whether it's one deep breath or 3 deep breaths, in the moment you choose. And then assess. And you can assess as you're taking those breaths, right? What is true for me in this moment? Am I getting irritable because this person is not doing something the way that I want them to, or am I getting irritable for another reason? And is my irritability going to impact my ability to have this conversation right now? What maybe I haven't considered from their perspective, or did I invite them to give me, information that I might need to better have this conversation? So you're going to assess what's true for me. What's going to be the cost of staying the same, right? And the cost of staying the same is you get irritable, you say the same things you've already said, and it doesn't lead to the outcome that you want, right? And so the cost of staying the same is you don't get your outcome. So pause, assess, and then align. And so if you're able to go through this internal shift, right, as you're having this conversation, you can say, I know that if I get irritable and I say the same things that I've already said, it's going to lead to the outcome. So I need to make sure that I choose my next steps, whether it's my words or my actions or my behaviors, with intention, right? So what action, what words is going to reflect the truth that I've uncovered, right? And in this case, I know that this person is not meeting their deadlines. I know that they're not doing the work as well as they could be. And so instead of saying, I need you to do this, you missed the deadline 3 times already, make sure you get it in, you change your approach and you say, I know we've already had this conversation a couple of times, and I apologize that I haven't asked you this before, but is everything going okay? Like, what do I need to know right now from you to help me to understand how to help you in this circumstance, right? It doesn't matter what you say or how you say it, but just like whatever it is that you choose, that's what you want to do. You want to intentionally align whatever it is that's coming up for you in that moment with your values and with the goals that you have. And in this example, right, the goal is to get them to be able to meet their deadlines or to perform at the level that we want them to perform at, right? Pause, assess, and align in alignment with the LRC and exactly what we want you to be able to do in real time. So again, your adjustments do not have to be dramatic. They just have to be intentional. We just want you to pause long enough to look at the situation from different angles and then to be able to intentionally choose the best path forward. And with that, I want to do really, really quickly, maybe a grounding and interactive kind of reflection for you all. And so what I want you to do is I want you to take a few minutes, whether it's thinking or whether it is actually journaling, and I want you to think about the prompts that I'm going to give you here. So the first one is, what is one insight that you've had recently about yourself, your leadership, or your team that you have not acted on yet? And so let's assume here that whatever you're going to choose, you've already kind of done some of the mental work and the awareness and the evaluation aspects. And what is one thing that you know that you haven't acted on yet? And once you have that example, I want you to then reflect on what emotion or what fear might actually be holding you back from integrating that insight. So remember, the barrier between we know and we understand and we actually do is usually an emotion or a fear. And so what is that emotion or what is that fear that is preventing you from doing what you want or need to do? And the last prompt for you here is, what is one small and meaningful adjustment that would help you act more in alignment this week? Again, it does not have to be massive. It just needs to be intentional. And when you think about it in terms of eating healthier or exercising, right? If we know that we need to work out and we don't because we're feeling tired today, and we had a hard day, what is the emotion? What is the fear that comes up for you when you think about, I don't want to go to the gym today, or I don't want to cook a meal today. I want to just order fast food. What is the emotion or what is the fear? So many times it's different for everyone, but at least for me, sometimes it's a desire to feel like I'm not enough, or I don't I can't even articulate it for myself in this circumstances. I think probably the core is I'm not enough, and that I should be better, and I know that I'm not better. And then when I don't take action, it gets kind of like, but like, what is that emotion for you? And then once you have that, what is one action that you can take? So for me, I have to actually schedule every single day. You will go to the gym at this time. And so that I know that when that time comes, that's what I'm supposed to do. And for meals, I have to remind myself when I want to just like pick up my phone and order Uber Eats or Glovo or whatever it is, remind myself like, this is not what I want to do, right? My value is I want to be a healthy and better in my life generally. And so like, I should not order this food right now. So reminding myself of my values and then being intentional in my actions, whether it is deleting the app off of my phone, intentionally deleting the app off of my phone, or intentionally scheduling the time that I decided will be my workout time. All right. So what is it for you? And for those of you who are live, this will be recorded on the session, so you can come back and you can go through those prompts if you're not finished just yet. I'm going to keep moving forward just for the sake of the video. And what I want to do is I want to just kind of make the connection now to intentionality, right? I sort of already touched on it, but the actions that you decide are the best, you have to then bring intention to those actions, right? So reflexivity is not the final part of the destination. It is kind of the framework and the ground for everything that we're going to do. And, reflexivity is the practice that says we don't exist outside of our context, and that our leadership is shaped by and is being shaped by the relationships, the systems, and the environments that we are a part of, and that those environments are always changing. And it's what helps us to kind of stay responsive instead of reactive in those moments, right? And when I say responsive instead of reactive, responsive is I have paused, I have consciously assessed, and I have consciously chosen, instead of I'm having an emotional reaction, I'm irritable, I'm annoyed, and I react, right? And so that's the difference. And now, again, with reflexivity, it's within us and around us. So the personal and the social aspects of that. And the recognition is that we have to continuously adjust what's happening within us, while also recognizing and navigating the circumstances that are shifting outside of us, so that we can kind of reassess the circumstances and intentionally come back to our values. What are the values that we have? And intentionally come back to what are the desired outcomes that we have. Because as we're shifting in the organizational context, or the relational context is shifting as well, then we have to also constantly take all of that information into our nervous systems and into our mind and into our conscious awareness, so that we can then say, okay, if I'm going to choose the best path forward for me, then I have to see all of these things. I have to recognize the importance of all of these things. And then I have to remind myself, these are my values, these are the goals that I have, or the desired outcomes that I have. And if I want to move forward, then I have to bring intention to the actions and the behaviors that I want to take related to all of those dynamics. Now, this is kind of where intentionality kind of intersects with reflexivity here. And so practicing reflexivity is what kind of creates the insight that's necessary for conscious choice. And then intentionality is where we take that conscious choice and we bring it into our daily lives, so that we can kind of live and lead from alignment. Now, it's reflexivity. We have kind of taking action on the insights, making adjustments, and refining our choices based on the information that we're getting as we're going throughout that process. And then intentionality is the vision for the outcomes that we desire, right? It's the attention that we bring to our daily lives, to our values, and to our outcomes that is going to shape our behavior. And yeah, so this is what we're going to step into next. And we sort of stepped into it just a little bit already with the first newsletter. And so if you have been following the newsletters, we started the first newsletter of the year with intention. And I wrote an article for Brains Magazine as part of this as well. But intention, most people set resolutions for the New Year's. And what I did was I talked about using intention instead of resolutions, which I won't go into that now. But what we're going to do next is, this live session, we're closing out the reflexivity cycle and we're moving into the intentionality framework that we have. And this intentionality framework is what's going to help us take everything that we've noticed and that we felt, and it's going to turn it into consistent and embodied leadership. And the way that we're going to do this is by helping you to understand 6 core dimensions that influence and shape your habitual patterns. And, I briefly introduced this before, but if you're not familiar with the intentionality and the dimensions, what I talk about is these 6 dimensions influence our habitual patterns. And if we want to change our habitual patterns, we have to bring attention to each one of these areas. And that is our thoughts. What are the thoughts that we have that shape what we think and what we feel? What are the emotions that we have that influences our physiological reactions in our body and then our outward behaviors? What are the behaviors that we kind of exhibit every single day? What are the actions that we take or that we don't take? What are the processes that we have in place that are going to support us in making the changes that we want to make? And finally, community. Who do we have in our communities that are going to support our growth or prevent us from reaching our goals? And so when we talk about intentionality, both in the book and we'll get into it in the newsletters, these are the areas that we're going to be covering. And for the first newsletter that you've already got, we covered intentional thought, and we talked a little bit about what are the mental beliefs that you have and the mental scripts that you have that shape your leadership. And this could be all different kinds of things. It could be what you learned about leadership formally. It could be what you learned about leadership through the positive and negative experiences that you had with others. And it could be from anything and everything, but whatever these beliefs are and these scripts are that you have that prevent you from being the leader that you want to be. And then next month, we're going to dive into the emotional aspect. So we'll talk about, how do you understand and express your emotions in a way that helps you to build trust as a leader. And what each one of these areas are going to do is help you, again, take that awareness that you've cultivated and bring it into how do you show up consistently every single day that is in alignment with your values and the organization's values and the organizational context that you're a part of. So with that, I will go ahead and start closing out a little bit. I have a couple of things left to do, but I want to first thank you all for being here. I really, really appreciate it. I'm so excited to share this with you all. And so I appreciate you being here. I appreciate you taking the time to think critically, to reflect a little bit, and to show up honestly. So thank you for that. This really, really is the heart of everything that we do in conscious leadership, and it takes presence and it takes practice. So again, if this session resonated with you today, I would love to invite you to join us again next month. We will have a live session just like this one every month this year. And we will also have newsletters related to the concepts. And so if you like to read about it a little bit in the newsletters. If you like what you read in the newsletters and want to hear more, come to the live sessions. Our next newsletter is going to drop on February 2nd, and it is going to be how leaders shape emotionally intelligent cultures. super excited for this one. I also have an article that'll be coming out in Authority Magazine on this concept as well. And we will also explore intentional emotion and how emotional tone kind of creates safety, trust, and depth in your teams. And one final thought that I want to leave you all with is insight is powerful, but conscious action is what actually creates transformation. With that, thank you all for being here. I'm grateful for you walking the path with me. Deep, deep love and gratitude for you all.